I'm Terry Shepard, along with Jennifer Dornbush, with another in our series of interviews from the Outliers Writing University Studio at Bouchercon 2025. As a writer, have you ever been stuck? Well, the Outliers ongoing Writers Conference is your twice-a-month shot of momentum. You join best-selling authors for live Zoom classes the first and third Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific. And if you can't make it live, replays are available for 10 days. You could start anytime, and you'll be surprised at how economical the monthly and annual rates are. Or you can drop in on individual classes. Practical, craft-first sessions to help you finish that book. Save your seat at outlierswritinguniversity.com. And now, from Bouchercon 2025, our conversation with best-selling author Boyd Morrison.
It is my great pleasure to spend some time with one of my favorite people and an amazing author. Our special guest this hour is Boyd Morrison, and I don't even know where to begin to talk about his resume. What's most important to you as a book fan is that he is a fantastic author, and one of my favorite series is a series that he has done with his sister Beth. Both extraordinary human beings. He's also an actor who's getting ready to be on the stage later this month. Boyd, it's great to see you again.
Thank you, Terry. It's great to see you.
How is the latest book in the series coming along?
We have turned it in, the first draft. We're waiting for notes from our editor. It's the fourth book in our Lawless Land series about a knight in the 14th century who is traveling around continental Europe with his now spouse, Willa, and his name is Gerard Fox. And we think of him as a knight-errant couple that are traveling around solving people's problems while they're trying to find justice for a wrong that has been done to them.
And this one has a lot of animals in the plot.
It's the one that is coming out next July is called Duel of Beasts. And there are many animals in the story. We haven't done that before in this series, but we thought it would be a lot of fun to showcase how medieval people would view different animals. So, for example, most of them had never seen exotic animals, but there were exotic animals brought from Africa and Asia to Europe. And so, for example, if you have never seen a rhinoceros before, you might mistake it for a unicorn, a really ugly unicorn, but it has a horn on its head and it's kind of, shaped enough like a horse that you might think, oh, it may be just a mutated unicorn. So great, so they had no way of seeing that except in books called bestiaries, which were catalogs of animals. And the bestiary would include not only animals that were real, but they had never seen before, such as elephants and crocodiles and hyenas, but also mythical animals like griffins and unicorns and phoenixes that they thought were just as real as the elephants because they had no way of ever knowing. And so it was a lot of fun exploring all of that in this story.
Well, and your research involves travel from what I see on your Facebook page. Where are some of the places you went for this one?
So for this one, we went to southern Spain and we visited Cordoba, Seville, Malaga, Granada. And it's a really interesting time period for our book because it takes place in the 1350s. And at that time, Spain was split into Christian Castilian Spain and Muslim Granada Spain. And so our book straddles those two different kingdoms. And we talk about the tension between the Christian and Muslim worlds at that time, but they were also in the time of our book at relative peace, but it could be shattered at any moment. And that's part of the subject of the book.
One of the most interesting things for me about the Lawless Land series is that time frame that you write in was a very male-dominated time frame, but your female protagonist is very liberated.
Yes. Yeah. And when we came up with this idea for this series, we really think of Gerard Fox and Willa as people who are a little out of their time period, that they're kind of advanced, they're progressive for the time that they're in, because we wanted to give them, since there's no time travel in the book, like say an Outlander, we wanted to give the reader someone that they could understand and commiserate with but going through the really difficult parts of the medieval world. And it wasn't an easy time for women. And so women are a big part of the story that we're working on, actually, or that we've just turned in. We have our first, our second female villain in this one. So there's a lot of interesting aspects of life for women in this time period that we explore.
And another dimension of it is it's a true collaboration with you and Beth. How has that process evolved over the space of 3 books?
Well, this is, and we published 3 books, and this will be the 4th book. And I should mention that my sister Beth is the head curator of medieval manuscripts at Eddy Museum in Los Angeles. So she is a world authority on the Middle Ages. And so that is one reason that we paired up. Another reason is that she has edited all of my books, even before that, including the ones that I wrote with Clive. And so she knows my writing style very well. And so it was easy to start collaborating, because I often go to her even before this when I had plot problems, and she's very good at figuring out plot holes and pointing out character issues. And so for these books, we would plot them together a lot of times when we were walking our dogs, because I live in Seattle and she lives in Los Angeles. And so in the morning, we'd be walking our dogs and plotting out the books on the phone. And then I would write the chapter and send it to her that day. And then she would send it back to me with all her edits and with all of the period details that I don't know. And then we just keep going like that until the book's done.
What happens during the editing process when your editors get that?
When they get the final draft?
Yes.
We try to keep it pretty clean by the time they get it. We haven't gotten our notes back on the new book, but we have a very good editor that we've worked with for the first 3 books. And she always gave us incredibly insightful notes about how to deepen the characters, go into more of the politics of the era so that people can understand what was at stake in the novel. Tell us when period details were confusing, when we needed more information for the reader so that they can understand really basic issues that I didn't know, such as if they're traveling, where do they stay? Are there inns, taverns? But it turns out that especially nobles would stay in each other's houses. They would just show up and say, "Hey, I'm a knight or I'm a lord. Can I stay in your castle?" And they would say, "Yeah, well, because we want to be able to do that when we travel." But I didn't know that. And so it's a lot of those mundane details about everyday life that we really had to research. Where did they sleep in the 14th century? Did they have beds? Did they sleep on the floor? Did they sleep on what are called rushes, which is basically hay that's spread out on the floor? A lot of people just slept on the floor. They didn't have beds at that time. I didn't know that. So these are the kinds of things I was discovering as I was writing these books.
And you're used to this spotlight through the course of your life because of your achievements. You're used to talking to people like me. You're used to having people recognize you and being a quote-unquote star. What's that been like for Beth as the popular?
Beth is a star in her own right because, as I said, she's a world expert on the Middle Ages. She was just inducted to the Medieval Academy. She's one of the youngest people ever to be inducted, which is a great honor for her. She has spoken at many academic conferences and she's even given, she was, I think, the past president of the Jane Austen Society. So she's given speeches about Jane Austen. So she is very well versed in speaking as well. And so when we do interviews together, it's very easy because she's already been doing this. It's just, this is a different domain. She's never written fiction, but she wrote 7 or 8 books before this that were nonfiction, either exhibit catalogs for shows that she's done at the Getty or books on art history that she's written for the layperson. And so she was already an author. It was just, this is her first novel series that she wrote.
And I'm fascinated by your interest in acting.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what drives you to that.
I just love performing. I find that acting is very complementary with writing, because both in process and in the craft, because in the process of writing, you're alone, you're sitting at a computer all day, and you are coming up with the story yourself. But with acting, especially on the stage, you're on your feet, you're collaborating with people. And when I'm acting, I'm not in charge of everything. I have a director who tells me, so it kind of relieves some of the pressure, because then all I have to do is worry about my character. But when I'm writing a book, I am the actors for all the roles. I am the costumer. I'm the special effects person. I'm the audio person. I'm the director. And so I have to do everything in the novel. But when I go on stage, all of a sudden it's just my character, and the director tells me if they don't like something or if they want me to change something. So, and then as far as the craft, when I'm writing, when I read a script, it helps me understand what the author is intending when I'm reading my character's lines. And then for when I'm writing, I use my acting to understand what the character motivations are, what their objectives are, how they're relating with the other characters. And so I use both of those skills in each domain. And then I just love being on stage and getting the audience feedback. So for example, I'm rehearsing a comedy right now because I love getting the laughs from people. And there's a lot of physical comedy in this show, which I love doing. I've done all kinds of things, falling down stairs, and in this play, I get to play drunk for a scene, which is always fun. So I'm really looking forward to that.
How do you do that? You base that on your college experience?
Yeah, there's been plenty of research I can draw on to do that. And, one of the things that you often hear as an actor is people who are drunk are trying not to be drunk. They are trying to stand up straight. They just can't, or they don't want people to know they're drunk, but they can't stop it. And so that's a mistake a lot of actors make, is they're trying to be drunk, but really drunk people are trying not to be drunk. Same with crying on stage or on film. People are trying not to cry. They don't want to cry. It's just coming out. And so, that's a technique that I've used in emotional scenes, is you're really trying to hold it in, but it comes out anyway. And that makes it feel even more real, because in real life, you don't want to cry when things are, even in the most sad situations at a funeral, you're trying to stop, but it comes out anyway. And so, for me, that makes it a lot easier to reach those moments when I need to.
We're talking with Boyd Morrison about his Lawless Land series and about his foray into the performing arts. They say that acting for a camera is all in the eyes. Mm-hmm. What is acting for the stage like?
It's I work with an acting coach named Howard Fine, who's taught many, many big actors like Will Smith and Kerry Washington, and one of the things he always says is acting for the stage is not that different from acting for the camera, except the camera will show bad acting much more easily than you will see it on the stage. And so really for me, the main difference is projection. If I'm in a 200-seat theater, that's different than if the camera is 3 feet away from you. And so you do have to be demonstrative for people at the back of the theater, but really your motivations, your intentions, the obstacles, they're all the same when you're acting in either medium.
Do you get insights from your work on the stage and on the screen that help you when you're writing your books?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As I said, I use a lot of my acting training in my books. In fact, the first book of The Lawless Land, you can see in my acknowledgments, I acknowledge Howard, my acting coach, because he has helped me do much better character development in my books, because in acting, I understand when I'm trying to create a character, how I'm building it, and thinking about my motivation. What are my obstacles? What are my objectives in a scene? And so I think about that when I'm writing a chapter, especially because I usually write from the third person close point of view. And so it's always from a character's very close point of view. And so I think about that. What are they trying to do in this chapter? What do they want? What are the obstacles for getting what they want? How are they overcoming those obstacles? And then what are the reversals? Because as you know, I love doing chapter ending cliffhangers. So what is the bigger obstacle that comes at the end that hopefully makes people reading the book want to go on and find out what happens next? And so that has been very helpful in my writing.
There's a joke at our local library among the librarians when I show up and I go into the Boyd Morrison section. They say, "Terry, you're writing another chase scene because you have all the Boyd books out." What is the essence of a great chase scene in writing?
That is a great question, because, a lot of that comes from being a lifelong reader. And I think I've internalized, after reading thousands and thousands of books myself, I have been influenced by Clive Cussler. I read him. I wrote 6 books with him, but I've been reading him since the early 80s. And so I think after reading dozens of his books, as well as many other great authors, I think I just internalized how to do that. But I always think of it as, I'm a big football fan, and I think of it as the best football games that are the ones that there are many reversals in the game. And so when I'm thinking of a chase scene or an action scene, there's got to be a lot of change. Who's in the lead? That's when it's exciting. So in a chase scene, at first it may seem like your protagonist is going to have an easy win, but then they find out something that makes it so much harder. But then they overcome that, but then something else happens. And so I really try to make those surprises happen, but in a way that when you read it, go, oh yeah, that makes sense. So it's not coming from nowhere. So I'm thinking, actually a horse race that I wrote about in The Last True Templar, which is the second book with Beth. And again, we seeded how he could win the race at the end of the race, but the race takes 3 chapters, and I wrote it from multiple points of view. And I think that helps as well, because when you're seeing it not just from Gerard Fox's point of view, who's running the race, but then we see it from his antagonist's point of view. And then we see it from Willa's point of view as she's watching it. And so that helps build the tension in the chase too. But, I think of that scene, and at the beginning he thinks, okay, I know how to win this race. But then you find out that the bad guy has co-opted 3 of the other racers to try to stop him. And so he almost falls off the horse, but then he's able to, stay on the horse, and then he takes a shortcut that nobody's, so, and then at the end of the race, we had built up before then the rules of a race. And I think that's the other thing that is really important when you're doing this, is what are the rules? What are the stakes? If they doesn't win the race, what happens? And so, or in a chase, any chase scene, what's happening if they don't win? You know, if they don't get away, or if they don't catch whoever they're chasing, what's the stakes in that? What are the obstacles up ahead? What are the rules of the chase? So that you know, because I think that helps build the suspense and the tension. If you know what the rules are, but then if they don't follow those rules for some reason, then you know what could happen because of that. And so, for example, in this horse race, we set up that, and this is true, that the horse race is won by the horse, not by the rider.
Yep.
And we put that in there. And then at the end of the race, he actually wins the race because he sacrifices himself and jumps off the horse, but to get the bad guy. But the horse goes on and wins the race. And
That was part of the rules.
But you had to know that ahead of time so that you could see why he would be able to win the race, even if he fell off his horse. And so, yeah, I think so. A lot goes into the planning of any chase scene, but also building in a lot of reversals and little minor victories and minor setbacks all the way through, I think, is what makes it effective.
You've had enough adventures for 3 lifetimes in your life, Boyd Morrison. What's still on your bucket list? What do you want to do?
I've done so much. I'd like to, there's a few things I'd like to see. I'd like to see an active volcano erupting. Kilauea or Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen the Northern Lights. I'd love to see those. And then I'd love to see the terracotta warriors in China. I've never been to China. I've been to Hong Kong back when it was still part of the British Empire, but I've never been to China. And that would be fascinating. And actually, my father was born in Shanghai, China. And so it would be interesting to visit there as well.
His series is The Lawless Land. Book 4 is coming out in 2026.
July 2026.
Excellent. Our special guest, Boyd Morrison. Great to see you. Thank
You
you.
too. Thanks, Terry.
And that's another interview from Bouchercon 2025, a copyrighted presentation of Outliers Writing University, all rights reserved. Learn more about our essential services at outlierswritinguniversity.com. With Jennifer Dornbush, I'm Terry Shepard.